Okay, so I'd like to say good morning. My name is Adele Emery, and I am the chair of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation Board of Directors. I would like to start with an apology for the delay in starting the public meeting. The board had a very important and fulsome discussion in camera first, and it just took longer than we had expected. So I appreciate your patience with that. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting, which is taking place in Committee Room 2 of City Hall and virtually using our WebEx platform. We are also live streaming today's meeting on YouTube. I would like to begin with an acknowledgement that the land we are all on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We also acknowledge all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. And before we move on to the business of the meeting, I know that the new composition of the board has not been approved by the City Council. That will be next week. But there are 2 board members that are retiring from the board, and I would be remiss if I did not thank them for their service to TCHC and this board. And this will be their last public board meeting. So I would like to first say thank you to Ziva. Ziva has been a tenant director for the past 2 years, and I know that this is Ziva's first board experience, and I certainly hope that she found it to be a useful and beneficial experience. I think it's very good for professional development. And I certainly found Ziva to have a very valuable and informed voice on behalf of the tenants that she represented, particularly as it related to the strat plan and the board's workshop. So I really appreciate it. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank you, Ziva, for your service to TCHC. And I look forward to your continued commitment and support of this organization. So thank you very much. I would also like to acknowledge John Campbell's 6 years of service to the board. We joined the board together, John, and I really appreciate your leadership of Tenant Service Committee and your membership on BIFAC. And you were a member as I chaired that committee, and I really appreciated your insight. I was honored to serve with you, and I respect your commitment and support of TCHC. I also respected your professionalism and your hard work. I always knew that you came prepared, you had read your materials, and I will miss your probing questions. So thank you very much, and I would like to thank both of you for your service to TCHC and this board. And we wish you all the best in the future. Thank you. Now we will move on to the agenda. So could I ask if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda? I will note that 10C, which is the review of board and committee charters, is being deferred to the next meeting. There is still some work that needs to be done, and we will do that and bring that back in October. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? Okay, hearing none, can I ask if any members have any conflict of interest as it relates to any items on the agenda presented today? Okay, hearing none, I will note that items 9A is held as a guest. 9C has a deputation.
9B.
On which item? Okay. So I'm going to do the deputations first. So it's item 7, 9C, 9E, and 10A. We have deputants on those items. 9A and 9B are being held for presentation. And could I ask if any other items would like to be, if any members would like to hold any other items? John?
Or did you say 9B?
9B is being held for presentation,
Okay, all right.
as well as 9A. Are there any other items?
9 E, please.
Sorry, 9.
E, State of Good Repair Program and Process Review.
Oh, okay. That also, it has a deputation and a presentation.
Oh,
So
apologies.
we're holding that one. No, that's okay. Any others? Okay, so the only one I have is 9I. Oh, Vanita, I'm sorry.
No problem. 10B, please.
10B?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the exclusion of item 7, 9A, B, C, E, I, 10A, B, and C? Oh, no, 10A and B. I'm sorry, C has been withdrawn. That's my mistake. Debbie? Can I have a seconder? Naram, thank you. All in favor? Perfect. So we will move on to item number 7, which is our strategic plan. And I will, Sean, is this you or?
You have a deputation.
Oh, sorry, there is a deputation. So Miguel, I'm sorry. Sorry, I should pull this out. You're going to do it.
Hear me? Okay, my microphone is on. It's sad to see John Campbell leaving us. I appreciate all your questions through the time you stay with us, and your candor and enthusiasm and passion for tennis, and that is wonderful, and you will never be forgotten. So, the strategic plan. One of the recommendations on the strategic plan, it says that TCHC will improve in the ability to lead, to learn, and innovate. It's found in the report, page 1. One of the most interesting transformations that this corporation will undergo is to make better use of technology to improve service delivery, customer experience, and efficiency. So, in these regards, I learned that that there is a software application that most large corporations they use. Is called Yardi. Yardi allows for fast tracking and to improve reporting and decision making, but unfortunately most of the projects are done in Excel sheets. And I don't know if this technology can replace Excel and then move over to Yardi. That will be one of the recommendations as you are financing the second wave of funding. But when it comes to technology use, I also brought to your attention many times the use of how to equip our CSU officers with proper equipment to investigate noises. On that regards, I will continue advocating for the right to use technology that will minimize the state of the violence in our communities and improve the quality service for tenants. So in that regard, I sent a letter to Derek. I asked him if he can allow me to have a presentation with my friends from No More Noise Toronto, who are advocating for the reduction of the health risks associated with noises in residential, commercial, industrial, et cetera. So I wonder if today could I have an answer from Derek, if I can bring a presentation with my friends and give you the information. My friend John Campbell asked me last time, it's just a camera. Okay, but it's not a camera, it's a lot of things that needs to improve TCHC as you have this ambitious strategy plan. Thank you. That's it for today. I mean, 3 more items.
I was going to say, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this over to Sean, who's just going to go through the presentation.
So thanks very much. I'll just give it a minute while we get the presentation up on screen. I think we just have to do a share. And get it switched back over to...
What's this?
It's just to switch to the delegate desk and then to back to the regular system. Just
Okay.
a moment.
Okay. I hadn't seen that screen before.
Okay, very good. So I'm just going to go through the presentation material quickly. I know everyone's had a chance to look at it, but a couple points I want to hit just for board members as we get going here. So we are talking about progress against the 2025 through 2029 strategic plan. Board members will remember that we spent significant time last year working on what the plan should be, what the strategic priorities should be, and what the objectives are in support of that strategic plan. Having said that, there's still a lot of work to do to normalize the way that we use the strategic plan to inform, I would say, 3 really key work streams. How do we create a business plan that is refreshed annually, that is in support of the strategic plan? How do we create a budget that properly invests in all of those things that that business plan contemplates? And then how do we hold individuals accountable through a performance management program within our organization? It's really those 3 components coming together that need to work really well and be aligned. So that's what I'm going to touch on very quickly. But I also want to just let board members know that although we have good elements of each of those different components, we don't have a strong track record yet of aligning those well. So it's actually quite a lot of work to bring all of those up to the level that are required and then properly align them going forward. That's really been the work over the past year and going forward into this year as well. I'm going to go forward just a couple of slides so that you've seen the contents. The next page just lays out the theory around how you go about the measurement side of things. On the left-hand side, what we contemplate is that the board would have accountability around the strategic plan itself. What are the priority areas? What are the objectives that the organization is pursuing? And then how do you want us to measure and report against those particular objectives, right? And we want those to be outcome oriented, right? Are we achieving the things that we actually set out to do within the strategic plan? On the right-hand side where it says ELT accountability, ELT is our executive team, that's to indicate that there could be any number of initiatives that underpin those particular objectives and all manner of ways that we might measure progress against those initiatives. Sometimes it's a milestone, like get a new policy drafted and approved. Sometimes it's a measure, like have you actually increased the amount of inspections that you're doing on this particular topic, for example. So these 2 things need to work in combination. There's a series of initiatives that underpin the different objectives that we need to measure, ensure that we're getting progress, and then we need to regularly report up to our board that we're achieving improvements against the performance measures on an outcome basis. So I'll go to the next slide. We also need to think about the reporting and the manner in which we bring all of this back to our board on a regular basis. And again, this is something that we are beginning to do now in a way that we haven't done fulsomely in the past. So on the board side, you'll see both an annual performance report where we touch on those performance measures and whether or not we're making progress against the outcomes that we've intended to, as well as progress reports that we will bring periodically to the board to show that we're making progress against all the different initiatives and activities that we have committed to within the business plan. It sounds like it works quite well together, but as I said before, each of those pieces are being crafted. So we're not in a state yet where we're ready to bring all of that forward and manage the business in exactly this way yet. We're working towards it. The next slide shows the alignment of those three pieces that I talked about. So the strat plan, the budgeting side, and then the personal performance management side as well. This is not perfectly aligned yet, as I said. There's work to be done to bring all of these different pieces together. One of the things that I'll point out, and I got some feedback earlier this week on this one, was the alignment of the business plan. So the bottom left navy blue box there that says strat plan, annual implementation plan, and then beside that on the left, the financial board budget approval, right? So, you know, the board needs to understand that the things we're investing in are well aligned to the things that we're intending to do, to accomplish through the annual plan. So totally recognize that, and we need to work on how to bring those two together rather than have them follow one after another. So we'll take that away and work on exactly that. That was good feedback. And then the next slide is really where I want to spend just a bit of time. This is where we are right now, right, in terms of understanding what are the reasonable set of outcome-based measures that we can put against all the different 5 priorities that we've landed on with the help of the board just last year. It's not perfect, right? I think it's a good starting point for what we can reasonably measure against. And so what I would like to do is sort of proceed in 2 ways. I think that on the agenda, we indicated that we were seeking approval for this item, but I don't want to leave the board with the impression that this is a done activity. What I would like to do is actually proceed 2 ways. One is trying to nail down exactly what is a good end state dashboard or set of measures for the board to oversee. And this is a reasonable starting point for that, but I think we need to have a few more conversations to nail these items down. And then the second stream that I want to pursue is to not wait for all of that to be completed, but to start bringing forward reporting against these measures that we do have, right? Because not all of these exist today. Some need some work to establish them, but many of them do. So rather than trying to wait until we have this perfect and then begin to bring forward reporting, I'd like to do both. Let's work on making it more perfect, but at the same time, let's bring forward what we have. And I think those streams will probably counter-inform each other as we go forward. So that's what I would propose. And given that, perhaps we don't take this as an approval item, but perhaps just receive it today. And then I'd be happy to continue to work with board members on how to revise each of those different streams going forward. But having said that, you know, if you take a look at each one of these columns just now, under the left column, supporting safe, healthy, and inclusive tenant communities, we have measures at the bottom in bold there around are tenants satisfied? And there's different ways you can cut that. So we've indicated the overall building condition, overall satisfaction, whether we're satisfied with the building conditions, whether we're satisfied with safety. You could look at that geographically. There's lots of different ways that you can cut that up. The rate of critical violent incidents, the percentage of reduction in violence post audit implementations of our SEPTED audits, and then the participation rates that we're getting with tenants. So are they actually participating in tenant circles, tenant elections, our TCATs, those sorts of activities? The second one is around the cleanliness and maintenance. So there's some standard measures that we typically use there around whether we're meeting our standards. And then the third one at the bottom is whether or not we've added significant accessibility upgrades within our buildings. The third one is around the housing portfolio and the work we're doing to support Toronto City Building. So here we've talked a lot about the ratio of our RGI to markets and what our portfolio looks like, both economically and in terms of building complete communities. So we want to continue to report against that. And then there's other items around the energy efficiency and the state of our buildings. We've had lots of conversations around this table around FCI average not being sufficient, and we agree with that. So we'd like to start measuring things like how many of our buildings are in poor or critical condition, and how many of those buildings have we managed to pull out of that condition on a year-by-year basis. Moving to the last couple, so the Navy one, fostering a collaborative, diverse, and thriving workplace. So these are more internal types of measures, looking at things like our employee turnover rate, our level of engagement amongst employees, the well-established implementation of our EDI maturity model and measuring some of the objectives against that, and then the internal promotion rate. And then lastly, looking at our ability to lead and learn and innovate. So some more specific items here, maybe qualify more as those milestones or drivers, but we've elevated them because they've gotten a lot of attention and discussion at the board, and we want to make sure that we're making progress. So here we've got our funding commitments, our budget efficiencies going forward, and then a couple of very specific things around stabilizing our homes platform, which is actually the RD platform that our delegate mentioned just earlier, and the tenant portal, so the manner in which we engage with tenants electronically going forward, and then our positive media coverage rate as well. So I know I went through that very, very quickly, but I just wanted to provide a summary of what we think are the right sorts of measures. And as I said, I think happy to take comments and questions today on any of these and adjust them as we go. But also, I think we need to probably spend some time working back and forth with board members to revise these and to get them right going forward. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, so before we go to questions, the only thing I'd like to say is that the board does take their obligation to set strategy and to oversee the strategy of this organization very seriously. And I was here when we set the last strategic plan. I know there was a number of others that were also here, and the board was not included. And it was basically provided to us for approval, and the reporting was not strong, and it wasn't connected to the budget. So I really appreciate the work that has gone into involving the board in this go-round. The workshops and the engagement, and I think that Sean's suggestion that we continue that as we work on this is very important. What we did before with the actual strat plan was we had the chairs of the committees involved in a smaller group so that we're not waiting for each board meeting to move this forward. And I would recommend that we continue with that to move this forward. And I think there is still some work to be done, but certainly really appreciate the effort that's gone into what we've seen today and the progress that you've made, and we certainly appreciate the work that went into engaging us in this process.
If I may, Chair, I just say we appreciate that, and the collaboration has been tremendous for us because we absolutely want the board. We understand this is your strategic plan,
yep, and
we will continue to work in that method and appreciate the guidance, feedback, collaboration.
Okay, perfect. So are there any questions, Vanita? And I think Brian also has his hand up. Oh, and okay, John.
Through the chair, not to the chair, but to our fantastic ELT team, the deliverables under this item really reflect the hard work that went into trying to really move the needle forward on our strategic plan with the plan of action. Customarily, in my experience in about 25 years of doing this, you would typically produce this type of measure and document in parallel with the strategic plan, with the consideration of your budget as an outcome to determine, hey, are my strategic pillars going to be fully funded and realistic, or are they wild, audacious goals? But as a board, when we elected to pursue this path, as Adele noted, our shareholder direction states that we are co-owners when it comes to the strategic plan. We pursued a method of identifying our strategic plan, and now we're dealing with the implementation and then subsequent budgeting reality to ensure that we're fitting a timeline. But if there's a few things I would highlight from the documents that are received, it's that from a governance lens, it just appears that there were key items that were perhaps not necessarily just overlooked, but the perspective is what needs to be considered. When we think of board reporting, if we're left to just KPIs and dashboards, I hate to say it, but the boat missed, sailing through the harbor, we missed the point here. The board, when we look at all of your hard work and reports, we're evaluating decision-making criteria, trade-offs. There's fantastic resources that can help support how we finesse the incredible work that's already been put forward. And what I will say that is incredibly common of doing this type of activity, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees because you're too close. And that's where leveraging your board, your chairs, vice chairs, and committee chairs, as was done on April 7th, is excellent. I think as a non-chair board member, what I would be critical of is I made recommendations to things like charter changes without knowing what was coming down the pipe in implementation because I had zero visibility and zero communication and feedback. So my suggestion on the governance side is that if we were to proceed with making further improvements at the leadership level of chairs and chairs, vice chair of the board, and committee chairs, then a mechanism to encourage the feedback based on the deliverables presented in item 7 are received and communicated for that work. We don't want to hold it up. It doesn't need to be a special board meeting, but we need to find a way to be collaborative with this because the KPI and dashboard is simply not the efficiency and resource we need as a board to govern the organization. We need to go back to the charters. We need to go back to our shareholder direction and make sure that we're also putting in the seeds and the resources to support the excellent work, future direction, and strategic plan of the organization. So that's my feedback. You all have done a great job. It's incredibly difficult for an organization at this scale, but I'm looking forward to how our chair, vice chair, and committee leaders will engage the rest of the board to drive the results forward.
Okay, and we will work on that when the new board is constituted, but I appreciate the feedback. Brian?
Yeah, I have a number of, mainly trying to focus on to be as concrete as possible to know that we're moving in the right direction. And I just wanted to know how best, because I don't want to take up the time, is should I forward these through Sean to Barbara, or how would you like comments back?
Through the chair, I would greatly appreciate comments back. So if anyone has specific feedback on any of the material in the report and the attachments before you, please do feel free to email, or if you want to reach out and schedule a call, we'd be happy to meet.
So I'll forward my comments through you and copy Sean and Adele.
Okay.
And then
And if you do that now, and then we'll be very clear as to what the process, so what the working group will be, we'll come forward with that probably, later this month or in August. Okay? John?
Right, thank you, through you, Chair, to Sean. So what, in regard to the performance measures, is your plan to come back with showing the current state of affairs? So for example, RGA to market units, buildings meeting cleanliness standards, and then set some sort of goal? And will that goal be within the next year or within the 4 years of the strategic plan? And then there'll be some debate about that amongst the board members. How will you go about setting those performance measures?
Yeah, so through the chair, exactly that. So these different measures are in different states, right? So some of them we have good current state information, some of them are aspirational, and we don't have good current state. So where we do, we would bring it forward, and then we would look to set both a short-term and a long-term target for those, right? So what can be influenced based on the initiatives that are planned to be underway for this year? So therefore, what should we be targeting in terms of an improvement on an annual basis? And then casting further, say 5 years out, to the end of the strategic plan, and what are we trying to ladder up to through numerous and successive annual plans?
Right. So, for example, the rate of RGI to market units. I mean, we've talked about that. We know that it puts a bit of a financial burden on the board and the city, by extension, the city. That would be something that I would think, whatever the board decides, I would think that would need some sort of city approval, because if we were to decide all of a sudden, for example, that we were to go to 60-40, which is a wide divergence from what it is now, I don't think we can just do that. I think that has to be, that would have to have some input from the shareholder.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd say it kind of goes back and forth, right? So there's both commitments we would make as an organization and the board would make that would require the city to be bought into those. And also vice versa, right? There are requirements that the city is imposing upon us, either through shareholder direction, or less likely through shareholder direction, but more often through alignment of strategies and discussions that we have with the city, that also require the board to buy into the strategies that the city is asking us to pursue as well. So I think both happen, and happy to commit to ensuring that all the right conversations happen to align those interests and and you have my commitment that if we were to find ourselves in a situation where the board thinks we should move to 60-40, which by the way will take a very long time, but the city feels that that's not the right goal, then we'll bring that forward for further discussion.
And so does this strategic plan still require city approval?
I don't believe the strategic plan requires city approval.
Okay, thank you.
But I do think that we would have to ensure that we're aligning, right, which is different than them approving it. It has to be aligned. Brian, do you have your hand up again?
Yes, okay. Sorry. And
no,
I
that's
just
okay.
want to comment with regard to John's comment. There are two ways of changing that mix in terms of the number of RGI. The other is to improve the employment opportunities for existing tenants. And so, in fact, we can change the ratio if we can come up with strategies to help tenants improve their economic situation and have employment and get access to more, employment and jobs and that. So, I mean, it's not necessarily bringing, higher income tenants in, it's to improve the existing tenants' income levels if possible, and looking at strategies to do that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for Sean and Barbara on this? Okay, so we will get back to the board as to how we're going to engage to move this forward, because it is. Oh, I'm sorry, Ziva. I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry. You're still on mute.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties.
We all do.
So, I mean, so I just want to say that I really liked reading this report just because I enjoyed the idea that, not the idea, I definitely love the fact that you guys are putting tenants first. You guys are talking about building a stronger community, and especially when it comes to better building maintenance and safety and all of the things that we talk about as tenants. The question that I have for you all is, because there's going to be more like regular surveys and things going out into to TCHC and community to make sure that you get data. I just want to know, how are you guys going to make sure that you get those vulnerable populations? So like those underrepresented groups, and how would you be able to do that to make sure that their voices are heard? And make sure that we, based on the data that you collected, is also being shared with the board, and we can make some adjustments there.
So, through the chair, yeah, it's a great question. There's always challenges with surveys, right? Because you don't get everyone, you don't get full participation, and even then there's, are the questions interpreted well or whatnot? So there's always a place, I think, for survey results. But where I think we need to be pushing further is, how do we get direct feedback from people who've truly experienced something, right? So an example would be the work that we did recently around the work order feedback, right? So when a particular vendor work order happens in your unit, we actually had a pilot program we just ran where we would call individuals up, right, and actually have a conversation with them on the phone. So it's very different from getting, an email that says, would you participate in this 20-minute survey, versus getting a call and saying, how did that oven repair go, right? So it's just a totally different experience. So that's one example, and we're looking for more ways to do exactly that, right? How do we get deeper and engage with people that have had a real experience with us? You can do it as a post survey on a phone call, for example. There's a number of different ways to do it. So that's what we're trying trying to suss out and figure out just now. So even though it says surveys on the page, I'll assure you that we're looking for ways to try to engage deeper to get that information.
Mm-hmm. And I think those sources, Eva, are part of the future discussion as we move forward to ensure that it's reliable and it's timely. So thank you. Are there any other questions for Sean or for Barbara? Okay, so could I have a motion to receive this report? Vanita, John, seconder, all in favor? Thank you. And we do appreciate the work that's gone into this so far and look forward to it continuing. Thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 9A. And we have a guest from the, so Tara Anderson is here, our AG. So would you like to make a presentation first?
I just have some opening remarks, if that's okay with you.
Yes,
before any questions.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you so much, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm Tara Anderson, Auditor General for the City of Toronto. With me today online are Ina Chan, Deputy Auditor General, and Elaine Liu. Our team also included Patricia Lee and VTAC Cam. Thank you to my team for their excellent work on this follow-up review. Thank you as well to TCHC management and staff for their cooperation and assistance on this follow-up review. In particular, Jessica Hawes, John Ankoff, Abdul Elmi, and to Lily Chen and Kareem Jasani for their support. I'd like to give a brief introduction to my report before opening the floor to any questions you may have. First, I'll give a little background about the follow-up process itself, and then I'll go over the results of my office's follow-up of audit recommendations from 2 previous audits of TCHC. First, how our follow-up process works and why it matters. We follow up on the implementation status of open recommendations from our reports to verify that recommendations are fully implemented and are achieving their intended benefits. For TCHC, recommendations are adopted first through the TCHC BIFAC and board before being forwarded to the city's audit committee and city council. Recommendations are then entered into my office's online tracking system, and management updates our office using that online system, providing their action plans for implementing recommendations, and they can upload supporting documents at any time for recommendations reported as fully implemented. We normally wait at least a year after a report is issued before including recommendations into our citywide follow-up process to give time for management to take action to address recommendations. For example, the recommendations included in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of our 2024 TCHC cybersecurity audits were not included in this year's follow-up cycle, but will be included in the future. We generally do not conduct follow-up work on recommendations until they are reported by management as fully implemented. For recommendations management has reported as fully implemented or no longer applicable, my staff review actions taken and do verification work, such as reviewing related supporting documentation and records, and they meet with management and staff. Once my office assesses a recommendation as fully implemented or no longer applicable, it is considered closed. After our review, we report the results of our follow-up, and this is the report before you today. After the board has considered this report, the report will be transmitted by the TCHC board to the City Audit Committee and then to City Council. And given the relevance to TSHC, I will also be providing this report to the TSHC board for its July 31st meeting for information purposes. Moving on to this year's follow-up review. So this report is a consolidated summary of the status of 33 prior recommendations issued by my office to TCHC, which came from 2 reports. First, our 2019 audit on TCHC revitalizations, which included 23 recommendations, 12 of which were previously closed in a follow-up we completed in 2021. And secondly, our 2021 report with lessons learned from the audit of contracted property management services had 10 recommendations. This is the first time we've included these recommendations in our follow-up process. Just to note that these are the only 2 Auditor General reports for TCHC with outstanding recommendations other than the recent 2024 cybersecurity audits. During our current follow-up cycle, TCHC management, together with the city, reported a further 12 recommendations as fully implemented, which include 9 out of the 11 remaining recommendations from the revitalizations audit, and 3 out of the 10 recommendations from the 2021 lessons learned audit. We have assessed that all 12 of these recommendations have indeed been fully implemented and have highlighted some noteworthy results in our report. These achievements include leveraging TCHC revitalizations to address the city's affordable housing objectives. Since our 2019 audit, an additional 1,008 new affordable rental units were added to the plans for TCHC revitalization projects, although some funding commitments for these units and other required approvals are still pending. And strengthening the city's role in ongoing oversight and accountability over TCHC revitalizations. This is being done through new required approvals at defined stages of the revitalization projects, increased reporting on project progress, and improved transparency of TCHC development funding requirements through the city's annual budgeting process. As of the end of this follow-up cycle, 9 recommendations are not yet fully implemented and remain open. A list of these recommendations, together with management's action plans and estimated timelines for completion, are included in Exhibit 2 of our report. Thank you again to staff and management of TCHC for their ongoing cooperation and willingness to take action to address these recommendations. Thank you, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you. So before I open it up to questions, the one thing I would like to mention is we've, as a board, have not ever seen the progress that's been made on these 2 audits. So I would like going forward that take place. And I think the best is through BIFAC, so that we have regular reporting as to the progress that's being made on these outstanding recommendations, rather than just waiting for the Auditor General to come back and do a follow-up. So I think the motion originally was that the board ask the CEO to move these forward. And we probably were remiss back in 2000 and whenever it was, not to ask for reporting as to the progress being made. So I would like to have that implemented. I'm picking BIFAC, but I should probably speak up to ask Nick if that's okay.
Yeah, and this report came through BIFAC, so
yeah,
I think that's appropriate.
Okay, just so we move forward and the board is clear on the progress that's being made on the outstanding ones. Okay, so could I ask if there are any questions for the Auditor General? Vanita?
Thank you, through the chair. I guess it's not necessarily just for the Auditor General, but maybe a comment that builds on your point, because that was my first question on reporting cadence. It's the overlap with our own internal audit cycle cadence and planning, and how we have alignment between the AG's recommendations for compliance, visibility, and tracking at the board. So what can be done, what is being done? I don't know if Kareem is in the room. If not, perhaps we can defer that.
I don't see him.
So maybe I can start. So through the chair, and then I'll maybe ask Lily to comment as well. We are working on expanding our capabilities with respect to compliance management. I think it has been a gap historically. So we've talked about that with respect to reports from the Auditor General, with respect to our own internal audit reports, our Ombudsman's reports. There are a number of things that we are looking to comply with in terms of the work that's being done. But we're working to strengthen the manner in which we track how that gets done, and then how we report up, both to our board as well as to the accountability officers, how that all occurs. So there was actually a budget commitment that was made last year to strengthen some of our resources to do that, and we're in the process of setting up that capability internally. So I will just acknowledge that, on the couple that have come forward here today, there's a number of things on there that are dated, and we would like to have moved more quickly to get some of those things done. Happy to acknowledge that from a management perspective. But I think that a newfound commitment to this and new capabilities in how we track and ensure that we're making progress, and then report up to the board about that progress, as was just suggested, and of course we agree, will help us to ensure that we meet those requirements going forward.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our Auditor General or management as it relates to this report? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to receive? Vanita, Thank you. A seconder? Debbie, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And Tara, I would like to thank you and your team very much for your attention to TCHC. And we appreciate your input. It helps us to be better.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. We'll move on to item 9B, and we also have a guest. We have Ernst & Young here. So is Tess here? And do we have anyone from Macmillan? No, just E&Y. Okay. So there's Tess.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Is there anything that you would like to open with? Do you have any opening remarks?
I'll defer to Hanan and Lily. I'm happy to present the content as needed.
Yeah, through the chair, I will do some opening remarks and then open the floor for questions. We had presented our deck in the BIFAC session. It's also attached to the board package. So the procurement transformation work is designed to align TCHC's procurement operations with the leading public sector practice. Position procurement as a strategic partner that helps achieve our goals through modernized procurement strategy, policy, and the more efficient and effective practices. It is phase 2 of the work conducted by EY and also a PU team, as well as the internal TCHC divisions. The work include about 5 work streams: strategy, governance, people, operating model, process technology, and also value creation. Also with the proposed change management approach as well as the communication plans. The significant progress has been made across all the work streams since the project commencement February this year, with staff ensuring deliverables are met and internal teams are aligned. The project currently is on budget and also on schedule. As part of the subset of this work, the procurement policy is in front of you for approval. BIFAC has already approved it. So this document was last reviewed in 2012, is long overdue. So it involves the collaboration with external counsel, E&Y team, stakeholders across the organization, as well as the city as well. We have consulted the city PMMD division and also some of the city APCs, including TTC and TPS, in refreshing our procurement policy. With the objective to truly enhance the fairness, transparency, governance, and also clarity in the procurement process. So we are seeking the board the approval for the policy. In terms of the major highlights of the policies included in the deck as well, but I want to just call a few things out. It is one document referencing all procurement-related matters. In the past, it was like very, very slim version, about 4-pager, and now it's like close to like 30 pages. But it's a very, very much fulsome document, a policy document, with the objective to provide additional oversight on the procurement processes. For example, in there we talk about value for money. And then one of the elements is truly to leverage the buying group or cooperative purchasing abilities across like the city, we're part of the city group and some of the municipality. We have actually go above and beyond to work with, collaborate with other industry space partners like OECM, Supply Ontario, and also Connect GPO. We have seen substantial benefits being achieved in those areas across all the streams in terms of whether cost savings or cost avoidance. In this policy, we also incorporate the social procurement sort of guidelines. It's not necessarily the fulsome program on the policy framework as of yet. That's the next steps in our process. In working with the city, including SDFA and also our divisional partners, for example, operations and development team, to truly look at the ability to to increase our supplier diversity, B, to really look at the workforce development in the form of whether provide additional training, community development. management. We currently have it manifests that and allow your committee under management. We have a region to build a guys will continue to detail. And also compete. Is this special also relevant as the regular valuable so anything on the so there 2.4 to the back in
Great.
So, how will you whether or goods purchase if they are a, let's say, an environmental, but their threshold should
turn over to provide detail direct it's being to create one of the so specific criteria of would see for open in terms of trade-off.
That some not necessarily all track this is more
or compare package could be environment requirements sign with the price overall price
and we're talking there's a 7.2 competition very limited competition when it comes to buyers and on RFPs there were 3 competitors to spend company. Meanwhile, this event, forget the number, and do work. See in here this problem and RFP so that vendors and and it's here, and it's and so this is all.
The the procedure core procedure. The that's on relationship. As part of right?
Okay.
John, question to you.
Come back.
Debbie?
Not the floor. You are of the areas of the year. So, necessarily from the mainstream.
Framework.
John? Anita?
Do you mind if...
Yes.
So, explained it well. You know, what we do today is strategic work. That's not a policy. I don't have a what specific we can do to commented. Sometimes why try to find a way to use a good mechanism to use. Sometimes it might be there's more an you to identify what those proper out. There's a new RFP. So I want you to think that it's not our. It's a very important part of the procurement strategy going forward. It's just not in
suggest that you actually have to engage with vendors, not just when you're putting in an RFP, but in advance.
Absolutely.
Because TCHC is a difficult client. We should be honest about that. And so I think you have to engage with vendors way before you're just putting out an RFP.
Absolutely.
And I would hope in all of these plans, because we did get a report in camera, that there are individuals who are doing that.
Absolutely, through the chair to the chair. That's part of our vendor relations management strategy, the entire life cycle. So from the very beginning, it's about either we used to host regular vendor information sessions,
yes,
right? Not just for to strengthen the relationship with the existing vendor community, is also to broaden the outreach.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that work, we intend to bring it back and to do it in a more enhanced fashion in terms of frequency, in terms of outreach, in terms of like the diversity or categories of the spend.
Yes. Yeah. I also think it'll inform the RFPs. Sorry, Vanita? Oh, yeah, Vanita. And then Debbie?
Thank you. Through the chair, I've got two questions. So the first is, does a revised policy embed the lessons from the AG findings on vendor oversight and procurement risk controls?
The chair, yes. But we will do another look, right? As we go through, the policy intends to be the objective and guideline. And so when we go through our process redesign and also the SOPs that's embedded into the playbook, we will do a deeper dive to make sure we cover all the bases.
Thank you. Remember, policies aren't necessarily just static, right? We have policy, procedure, and how we implement. So it's like, imagine a living, breathing document that is influenced by all of the feedback we get from the government regulatory bodies that we report to. So that's fantastic to hear confirmed. The second question I have for you is, how is social procurement being operationalized through this policy, including vendor integrity, equity, and monitoring? Touches on Debbie's previous question.
I would say Sorry. It's in this policy, it's very high level guidelines, right? We are in the process of really fleshing out a social procurement program, as well as the actual process itself. So it's a collaborative work with, obviously with the EY team, with legal, with SPU, and also specifically is with our operations team and development team, because they hold different elements of it. And as a matter of fact, the team are doing fantastic work already, even in terms of current state. A development team is truly about community development, right? Economic development piece. And for ops team is like, any of the opportunities, whether it be scholarship and training, employment opportunity, and why not? So I would say definitely fall under like sort of two bigger buckets. One is truly like the supplier diversity. To go back to Director Douglas' comment or previous question about equity deserving group, which include the tenant-led firms, as well as the firms, the nonprofit firms actually employing our tenants to do the work across our buildings, right? So there are also other like social enterprises, and why not? And then actually, I believe there is a supplier certification organization list that's a part of our EDI strategy, enterprise-wide. It's going to be incorporated into that process and procedure. The second part is truly about workforce development and also community economic development. We have a great foundation. Some of the work is already well underway. Maybe I'm going to turn that over to Nadia to make a comment about the social procurement program really running in Ops Division. We actually set aside in 2025 budget cycle about $5 million as a target to achieve across the organization on the selected social procurement initiative.
So through the chair, I would just add that there is a lot of intentionality around supporting tenant businesses and other equity deserving groups and their businesses to actually become competitive in certain processes. So there's a lot of capacity building work underway. We're also doing extensive outreach to identify groups that maybe need a little bit of assistance going through our procurement process. So that's also something that we're doing. And then we're also looking at carving out areas of work that might be better suited for smaller vendors so that they could be supported through the process. So all of those things are underway as we speak.
Vanita?
Thank you. Just if I could respond, Nadia, to one of your comments, it reminded me that in another organization I work with, we started to point folks from equity deserving groups to resources with the City of Toronto. There's a lot of small business startup initialization grants and education that the city is really affording to help upstart small business in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie?
Thank you, Nadia. It's great to hear how the rollout of the social procurement initiative is going. Sean and Lily, I think it's important for us to embed equity within our policy framework. So I would strongly encourage that. Vanessa talked about the question I wanted to ask in terms of gender oversight and monitoring and whose responsibility will it be. I'm hoping that it will be directly attached to a member of the ELT, whether or not it's Nadia, I would think, as part of Nadia's own performance management in terms of how well we begin to do in terms of ensuring that we're getting value for money as well as quality work from our vendors, and that there are clear reporting systems, including hearing back from tenants of their experience with the vendors. I believe Adele, you started talking about the client cafe, because my concern is that waiting every 2 years to hear back from clients really isn't enough. And I know it's not part of the policy, just a caution that we need to pay particular attention to ensuring that we move really well on that piece of work. I think it was one of our main concerns for the Auditor General, but as well for us as a board, in terms of being ripped off by vendors time and time again. to recruit about it.
Yes. So through the chair, perhaps I can comment on that. So absolutely, Director Douglas, we are actively engaged with our management teams as well as our frontline teams that are required to sign off on vendor work. We have also initiated the Closing the Loop pilot in 2024 to actually proactively seek tenant feedback. Based on the preliminary results of that, we have 89% of tenants who are satisfied. With respect to the 11% that were dissatisfied with the work, we not only followed up with the individual management teams to ensure that we followed up with the tenant, but we're also consolidating that feedback so that we can give it through Hanan's team to provide support to the vendor oversight group that reports up to procurement. So it's really important for us to respond at an individual level, but also recognize that the feedback allows us to make decisions on future procurement processes. And so that's an area of work we continue to do and expand on.
Very good. Thanks for that, Nadia.
Ziva, I thought you had your hand up. Sorry.
I did, but Nadia answered the question that I had, was how do we ensure consistency with vendors that are coming to do work for TCHC? So she kind of answered it through feedbacks from tenants to ensure that the work is done properly. I just have a question I guess the question is if a tenant has a bad experience with something that a vendor has done within their place, how do they go about letting TCHC know about that?
So through the chair, there are multiple avenues by which we hear tenant concerns related to vendors. They could reach out to their frontline staff, so the building team that's on site, who could then escalate that. We've had emails go through our client care center and phone calls. We also have our complaints department that have also received vendor complaints, and there's also the ability to escalate directly to your regional management. So there's certainly avenues you could take. And like I said, I think there's an opportunity with our proactive closing the loop strategy to identify sort of individuals who might have had a concern that didn't flag it with us directly. So we're incredibly responsive, I would say, to when we hear from the tenants that there is an issue. I think our gap was more around the sort of tenants that have had issues that complain through other avenues such as TCATs or community meetings where we didn't necessarily hear about that directly and we were able to follow up. So that's the area that we're looking to expand on.
Are there any other questions? Can I just ask about this vendor cafe? I know you have a pilot. Is there going to be some reporting as to how successful that is and if it will be expanded?
So through the chair, we provided a report to our June Tenant Services Committee, specifically on the Closing the Loop program and expansion. I'm happy to...
Closing the Loop, my understanding Tenant Cafe was that they just went online and rated it.
So through the chair, I'll throw it to my team, but we don't have a formalized tenant cafe. We have a vendor cafe, and we are looking to explore a tenant app, which is
okay, so maybe that's what I'm...
Yeah, so that isn't actively in place. The Closing the Loop program is a proactive communication program run through the Client Care Center where we call tenants who've recently received vendor work, and we ask them questions directed at their specific experience related to the work they've received.
Okay, but is there a pilot program for this tenant app so that they can engage rather than wait to be called?
So, through the chair, it's not a pilot program. We are exploring the right technology to do exactly that. So it's on our radar for implementation, but we're looking at the right technology and the right way to roll something like that.
Okay, so I understood there was a pilot that had been launched. No.
Nothing has been launched.
I'm looking at John because that's who I heard. Okay.
So if I may add, this is more like a tenant portal, right? So I think that's what you may be referring to. It's on our part of technology roadmap, and we will be providing a plan by the end of this year, and also have a detailed implementation recommendation for next year. It's going to be like a multi-phased approach. to gather feedback, not just for vendor performances, but also for other activities the tenants are experiencing.
Yeah.
To be able to put into like a sort of one-stop shop of the intake and the data, the performance, and also report back. And I also want to comment for all the work the operations team are doing on the vendor side in terms of that vendor lifecycle management. Our intention is to actually look at the data, the feedback, and then to completely close that feedback loop. And some of the metrics, I have to say, it's not like everything. Based on the metrics and performance measures that we have data points available, we're able to capture and track and monitor. Those have been used in evaluating new RFPs and contract renewals and in assessing some of our roster health and why not.
Okay. My other question is about timing. So as long as I've been on the board, we've heard there have been issues with the amount of time it takes to go through this procurement process. So does this address the length of time?
Through the chair, this project intends to address that. That's one of the top, I would say, pain points and also pressure points across the division, right? So it's a procurement. How do we be more efficient and also effective throughout that entire procurement life cycle? So I'm going to throw this question actually back to my team. Probably Hannah and Jagdeep can make a comment. The work is already underway. We've gathered some data points to assess the current state, and also with the EY team and then also specifically our FM team, we're looking at improving, and most important is to reduce that cycle time, but at the same time not to compromise the quality of the work. Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, through the chair. What will come subsequent to the policy approval will be processes around how we run procurement and how we manage vendors' performance. In terms of how we run procurements, we're looking at establishing roles and responsibilities for the procurement team, as well as having the divisions play an active role in participating and estimating the value of work and putting a lot of planning prior to issuing procurements to the market. Better planning is necessary so that we can estimate any risks that can come up from unclear scopes or questions back from the bidder community regarding any potential ambiguity in scope that may prevent the bidders to actually submit a bid and so on. So that pre-planning is going to be built into the process, as well as once we close procurements, the evaluation of the bids, the evaluation of the rated criteria and the pricing, the process will look to address all of that, so that overall intent is to expedite the procurement process as well as the evaluation process.
Okay. And I'm presuming, or I should ask this, I shouldn't presume, E&Y is continuing to work with TCHC?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, so this isn't, now that we've got the policy, they're continuing to help you with these processes and...
Yep, okay. Yeah, and Tess is on the line if you'd like her to reconfirm she's still on the call.
Oh. Yeah, just throw it. Yeah. I'm here as well, and feel free to pass it to me any questions that you want my help with. Yes, so to confirm, we're in the midst of a 16-month procurement transformation in which the UI and SPU teams are working very closely together. We're about 6 months in right now. Okay. So a lot of the policy work and process development has been completed and is underway, but it'll be a continued journey to support both of the processes. We'll be helping with training, change management, as well as executing on more of those value creation opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's important. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the procurement policy and the plan? Vanita, John, seconder, all in favor? Perfect, thank you. Motion passed. Thank you very much for all your work, and thank you, Tess, for attending. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to item 9C, and we have a deputation. Oh, we have two. Sorry. Okay, so I have Miguel on my list. I don't know who. Okay, so turn to Miguel.
1 second, please. Today, I'm here as a resident of Regent Park to speak on this item. Also, I'm here as a director member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. I will be focusing my deputation on Block 14 on the report. 1 second, I have trouble here. Where is it? Right, okay, so Block 14 is the Daniels Presentation Center. It's a property that has been, in my opinion, an eyesore for more than 18 years plus, not serving the community, but just serving the Daniels Corporation interests in Regent Park. I wish that back in 2006, people would have been consulted about whether this shop located at 500 Dundas Street East, Block 14, could have become a multi-purpose facility, not just a sales shop, but it could have become a community center. Most weekends, that property was empty, et cetera, et cetera. I am glad that the friends from Tridel has listened to the community, and we have shared our frustration with Daniels about their shop for 18 years remain empty, I mean, just for the purpose of selling condos. So they are not yet started to build their sales shop, but we hope that this new facility will include partnership with other members of the community groups, grassroots organizations, that they can share the space for several activities when the staff is not in place, working, selling the condominiums. So I want to also remind you guys that Regent Park Neighborhood Association was in contact with Daniels back in 2022. One of the ambitious desires and wishes of the community was that this property would become the first indigenous co-op in Toronto. But Daniels put a request for proposal for developers, and unfortunately there was no indigenous housing developer interested in to develop this property. Thankfully, Daniels Corporation and TCHC have made an agreement that they will select Fred Victor as the housing partner in Regent Park at 500 Dundas Street East. I understand that this property will have up to 64 units. The first 4 floors will be dedicated for RTI or clients of Fred Victor. But I wonder if this is not too late to advise Fred Victor that one of the deep desires of the community during the pandemic was to turn this property into an indigenous co-op. But it's great that this is happening in 2025. And in view that, also remember that the planning, the city has reported that the number of homeless people has increased to 14,000 Torontonians living in parks and encampments, and most of them are indigenous folks. So I asked Fred Victor, what are you going to do about continuing the consultation with the community? I haven't received no answer yet. Perhaps Toronto Housing could have a conversation with Daniels and seek that that dream of the community turning into an indigenous co-op will remain in place. And we'll be proud, and this will improve and polish the image of TCHC down the road with indigenous communities that are being affected by Bill 5, Bill C5, et cetera, et cetera. So my brother Wali Kogali We'll be talking about the current voting for the community benefits agreement, and he is next on the line. And this is all I had to say on regards to Block 14, and the good news that we have a developer found with Fred Victor, and that will be great. But perhaps just to tap on the shoulder, hey, we want this to be an indigenous co-op, hopefully in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will move on to the next deputant. Waleed, I see you online.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Waleed Kogali Ali, and I'm a longtime resident of Regent Park. And I'm the co-chair of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association and the co-chair of the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group. I'm here today to raise deep concerns about item 9C, Regent Park Phases 1 to 5 Revitalization Update, specifically page 4 of 6. And I want to encourage the board to take corrective action to uphold your commitments to Regent Park residents regarding the community benefits process. In March 2020, Toronto Community Housing and RPNA jointly endorsed the Regent Park Phases 4 and 5 Community Benefits Framework. Under the leadership of then interim Vice President Vincent Tong, that framework outlines a bold vision that $26.8 million in community benefits will be governed by a community-led transparent process directly tied to the Regent Park Social Development Plan. Today, that commitment is being broken, in my opinion. The proposal before you outlines in item 9C makes no mention that community benefit dollars are meant to resource and support the Regent Park Social Development Plan, despite that being the very purpose of the framework. Instead, the report describes all packages include a tenant hiring target of $13.4 million in wages, the responsibility of Tridel. Additionally, $3.5 million is dedicated to community grants. Every 3 to 5 years, the community will be consulted to determine social development priority areas. This language misrepresents the governance model and reframes residents as advisory, not as decision makers. Furthermore, CBOG, which is the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group, a body created under the framework to co-develop and oversee these allocations, has been entirely bypassed. Its sense-making report, developed with over 1,000 residents who provided input through a survey and was formally adopted by CBOG, outlined a thoughtful distribution across employment and skills training, capital investment in community spaces, micro-enterprises and youth programming, community safety and communication. Yet today, CBOG approved allocations have been ignored. $13.4 million in employment funds are being managed exclusively. I want to repeat this, managed exclusively by the developer with no access for community-led employment initiatives. Meeting minutes were shared, honorariums for grassroots participation have been quietly removed. This is not participatory budgeting. This is not what the community agreed to, and this is not the Regent Park model that has guided over a decade of revitalization. We're asking the board to intervene to restore integrity and alignment. The community benefits framework promised that all funds, not just the $13.4 million non-employment portion, would be directed by Regent Park residents. That is the commitment we expect TCHC to honor. We also propose a clear, constructive path forward, that the Employment and Economic Development Working Group of the SDP be empowered to steward some of the employment-related allocation in collaboration with CBOG, reinforcing transparency, accountability, and community participation. To that end, we respectfully ask the board to, 1, affirm the authority of CBOG to co-develop all community benefit allocations. 2, ensure that the full $26.8 million is governed by the community as per the framework. 3, incorporate the SDP branding and alignment in all public materials as the city has also done when it comes to the social development plan, and restore equitable participation, including honorariums and shared documentation. In 2023, Regent Park achieved a milestone, my friends. 0 gun-related deaths, a result made possible by strategic investments in community-led social development. This is proof of what's possible when residents are trusted to lead. We're not here asking for charity. We're asking you to honor a signed agreement and to work with us to ensure that the promise of revitalization is fulfilled, not only in concrete, but in community, in concrete, but in community. And I want to thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions. And before I end my deputation, I just want to share, if it's possible, the community benefits framework on the screen, just as a reminder. Sorry, share content. This is the framework that I'm referenced to. It's on the Community Benefits Coalition website, and it is clear and transparent. And my hope is that we abide by agreements that have been endorsed by TCHC and the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think Sean would like to make a few comments.
I'm comment quickly, and I'm going to actually ask one of our staff members to comment as well. Just so board member to remind everyone, this is a very significant community benefits package. I think I understand that it's the largest cash contribution community benefits package in Canadian history. So it's a significant issue and really important for us to do properly. There's been tremendous work with Regent Park to ensure that there is significant community involvement in all levels of the work that we do, community benefits distribution as well. To be clear, the entirety of will be distributed in the form of community benefits. So I know that there was some discussion that be parsed and different, but all of it will flow towards community benefits. I'd like to ask Will Mendez, our Director of Community Engagement on our development team, to talk a little bit more about the approach that we've had in terms of ensuring that there is community involvement in how these decisions get made, that there's a variety of different voices brought to the table in how we provide that assurance, and then how these funds will flow going forward and the process that we're following. Could you comment, Will?
Yes, and through the chair, and I would just like to thank the deputants that have brought this to the attention of the board. We are very confident that the collaboration between the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group at Toronto Community Housing and Tridel as our developer partner has been very strong and has facilitated very robust conversations over the last 3 years. We've been working with the Oversight Working Group to design and implement a community engagement plan that has seen over 1,000 residents living in Regent Park, primarily TCHC tenants, provide input and feedback into prioritizing investment areas. And in the board report, those investment areas are summarized in the attachment number 4, where there's money allocated to employment, scholarships, training opportunities, community spaces, as well as funding for ongoing local granting. Okay, the context of this of the investments is we've kept the employment target that Tridel is accountable to achieve at $13 million, which is a target that enables employment for TCHC tenants to be employed on site and through Tridel's network through the duration of the revitalization period. And if Tridel does not achieve that target, they have to provide us cash in lieu. So that's why it's a $13 million target. And that is what Tridel is accountable to delivering as part of this project. In addition to that, the remaining $13.4 million, call it, of the overall $26 million package is in the form of cash investments. And what we're doing right at this point in time is for the community to vote on how that money should be allocated. And that is in the form of 3 packages that Regent Park residents have the opportunity to vote on, and they select, they prioritize those packages, and we'll use a ranked ballot approach to determine the winning package, which will then form our community benefits agreement. And we've started this process of community voting approximately 3 weeks ago, and I'm happy to report back that so far we have about 627 residents of Regent Park that have participated in the voting process, with our overall goal of having a minimum of 1,000 people participate. So community has been involved in informing what the investment should look like, not only through our engagement, but also through community reports that have come prior to the inception of our community benefits working group. So we've used a lot of community data to inform the actual packages. Now we're going to community to figure out which package community would like. So there's, and with the goal of 1,000 people participating. So that's a community engagement. And I just want to draw some attention to a little bit of context. The deputant brought up a very important point of the connection with the social development plan. So Regent Park in recent years has received a lot of City of Toronto investments for social development plans, particularly in Regent Park. That money is coming to an end, and there is a need for investments in the social development plan. Everything that's included in the community benefits agreement speaks to social development in general. So there's money, there's employment, which is a social development priority for Regent Park. There's training, there's money for ongoing local granting, which will then help with grassroots organizations and TCHC tenants and community members to put on different initiatives that speak to the immediate priorities of the community. So we're doing our part in terms of TCHC's contribution to advancing social development in Regent Park as part of the original commitment when this revitalization started. But there is a concern from people that are heavily involved in the social development plan tables, including the RPNA, to get additional resources from the city. And so I just want to bring that to the attention of the board as a contextual component, because we cannot fund everything. Like there's various players that have, and funding bodies that have contributed to the social transformation of Regent Park.
Thank you. There's a few questions. So Debbie and then Brian. Oh, and then Ziva.
Thank you for that context setting. And so I'm trying to understand where the concern is then from Wally, given what we've just heard in terms of how that, well, putting aside the 13 million for employment, and we trust that it will be sustainable employment and meaningful employment for the most part. And so Wally, what's the disconnect given that the balance of the 13.6 million will be going towards social development goals, although they may not be specific as to what the community benefits oversight body has put on the table?
Excellent question, Debbie. The concern is primarily focused on those funds, half the bucket basically, being spent exclusively on project costs that relate to the hire of full-time staff, and we welcome that it will be Regent Park residents. But what we've championed is that the funds will, one, be determined by the community through a vote. And we went through a sense-making report that was endorsed by the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group that actually recommended different allocations, 33% for employment, and another allocation that came out from the sense-making report was 39%. TCHC is put forward the 50% allocation. It was not the residents. It was TCHC, and the argument was that we think this is the best allocation, ignoring the residents that participated in the survey, where we had over 1,000 participants. That's the concern. The other concern, and I've been talking to your CEO, Sean Baird, about this informally, and I've requested a meeting on behalf of RPNA, is we are invested in a solution for it. We don't want this. We want this vote to be completed. We want community voices to be heard. But as a compromise, what we're pushing for is the employment and economic development working group of the social development plan have access to that $13 million, not just Tridel exclusively. And any rational person will, come to the conclusion that it's basically a $13 million cash contribution to the community, not $26.8 million. Because if you're allocating $13 million to project-related costs for Tridel and not allowing the employment and economic working group of the social development plan that has helped Regent Park residents gain employment, gain good jobs in our community, then you are doing this whole process a disservice. And I argue that it's against the framework that was endorsed by RPNA and TCHC.
Thank you, Walid. My TCHC colleagues, how did we arrive at 50%?
Yes, so the allocation of 50% of the overall investment, the original proposal from Tridel was $17 million. We looked at several factors went into that decision, one being the intense advocacy from the community for the developer to provide meaningful jobs for people living in Regent Park. Okay, and we heard a lot of criticism in terms of perceptions from previous phases. And we also received reports from the community stating that employment leveraged through the developer and its network is very important. So we took that into consideration. We also took into consideration what the community said through the 1,000 responses and also their recommended averaged allocation, which is less than 50%, and took a look at the feasibility and the employment projections based on historical data in other revitalization sites, the duration of Regent Park's revitalization, and took into consideration how long would $10 million last as an employment target, okay? How long will $17 million last, and how long will $13 million last? So $13 million enables enough runway, or as a high enough target for Tridel to sustain employment throughout the revitalization period. Anything less would create a situation where Tridel will hit that target before construction is concluded within the revitalization. So this is our only accountability measure to ensure that there's construction employment facilitated throughout the duration of revitalization. And that's the main driving factor as to why it's set at 13.4 million. And the reason why we did not want variations of that is because we didn't also want to create the dynamic that community is fighting employment, which they've advocated for, in different levels of targets. So we kept it consistent across all three options that community gets to vote on. We also kept consistent $3.5 million in local granting consistent across all three packages, because we didn't want the dynamic emerging within community that they have to, now fight for different types of investments in local granting. I hope that responds to the question adequately, but that is the rationale behind the decision.
Thank you. So good. I understand now where the concern is. Thank you.
Brian? You're
Sorry.
on
I wanted to know what changes in engagement, because it seems community engagement, community development is such an important part of all our developments and engaging. And so I'd like to hear back how we could better engage that community to be part of the decision-making process as opposed to being just recommendations into the process. So that's one part of my question. And my second part of my question relates to the reduction in gun violence and any other, because I'd like to understand what impact in financial impacts, maybe less CSU involvement in that community. Therefore, this is a very important aspect of how to deal with these types of violence that we definitely want to deal with in our communities and reduce it. So, what can we learn and what have we been able to, in fact, save financially by investing in community development rather than trying to increase the number of CSU in the community. So I'd like to understand a little more the impact of of how this whole process has improved the I guess quality of community for the tenants and the people who live there.
It's an excellent question, Brian. I just want to say that for community engagement, we've been sitting at the table as volunteers, helping co-develop this process for years.
Mr. Kigali, I believe that question was addressed to staff.
Yeah, so could,
Well,
Brian, was it for management? Sean would like to comment?
Yeah, I would certainly both, actually.
Okay.
How we can improve the interrelationships and make decision-making more participatory and
Okay, so Wally, you go first, and then Sean will speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so Brian, that's an excellent question when it comes to engagement. Like I said, residents have been volunteering years of their time to ensure that this process is done well. And there were commitments made to the community, and that is residents will decide how that $26.8 million is allocated, not $13.4 million. Point one. Point two, residents were actively involved in the selection of the new developer partner, which was Tridel at the end of the day, and it was informed by our community priorities, specifically outlined in the community priorities report. What I think is critically important is we want to make sure those investments are community-led, not Tridel exclusively led. That's the challenge that we're dealing with right now. If the developer gets to pick and choose where the $13 million is spent, instead of working with residents, working with the community, working with the Employment and Economic Development Working Group, for example, then the outcomes will be less meaningful and impactful. You asked the important question about community safety. Well, the reason why I believe we had 0 gun-related deaths in the communities because many grassroots organizations, resident-led groups, and initiatives had an impact in supporting at-risk youth, at-risk members of our community in finding jobs, in finding employment. We say the root causes of poverty and crime is poverty. The root causes of the challenges we have as a community is poverty. So the employment bucket is very important to us. And that's why we don't want it to be exclusively a Tridel allocated priority. It should be community co-led process. And that's why I'm deputing today. I really care. I love my community. I want the best for my community. I want to make sure we have 0 gun-related deaths for decades to come. I want to make sure that Regent Park is a place where investments come. And we have an amazing story to tell, not just to the rest of the city and province and country, but to the world, my friends. And it can be done through your leadership. We've signed a framework. All I'm asking for is for the implementation of the framework and not for TCHC to allow Tridel to exclusively allocate those funds. Lastly, we're proposing a compromise. We know there's a vote that's going on, and all we're asking for is for that bucket to be accessed by the community through the Employment and Economic Development Working Group of the Regent Park Social Development Plan. That's our compromise, right? We know that TCHC has already invested resources in the vote. And if that happens, we'll be going out there championing those packages and allocations, and we can collectively increase the turnout from the 600 number that Will Mendez mentioned earlier. And that's why I'm coming here, is to ask for your support and your help in course correcting this process, so that we are all working collectively to ensure that we have the results that we want, which is community safety and a social development plan that is fully resourced as we intended back in 2020 when Vincent Tong signed this framework on behalf of TCHC.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, so through the chair, I strongly agree with lots of the points. I mean, there's been tremendous improvements that have been made within Regent Park, and absolutely that's with the support of and through the hard work of so many different community organizations and agencies that have come together to make change happen there, and it's tremendous. I agree too that it's been shared with many organizations around the world that have come to tour and learn, and not just from TCHC or the City of Toronto, but from community organizations that are doing active work on the ground there. So I strongly agree that there's lots of incredible work that's been done there. Having said that, there's also learnings from the first phase of the work as we've gotten into the fourth and fifth phase of the Regent Park revitalization. And so a big part of that learning is a substantive increase in the amount of community economic development investment that is being made on behalf of the developer here. And that was part of the process that went through to select Tridel as the developer partner here. And it is the most significant increase that we've seen across all of our different revitalization projects, and as I said, sort of across Canada earlier. So yes, agree that there's been lots of work done and lots of improvement made on the experiences of the community. To your point, Director Smith, we'd be happy to do a more fulsome look at what the community safety and economic implications are of that transformation over time. I think that would be a fascinating study to do. So we'd be happy to dig into that a little bit more. To the first part of your question, though, which was around how do we ensure that community is properly engaged in how we govern and distribute the funds, I think that really is the nub of the question that's in front of us. So I'll make one quick point, is that there are a variety of organizations and individuals that would like to be involved in that process going forward, and we're trying to be respectful of a variety of voices and inputs into that. But then I'll pass it to Will to give further comment on specifically how we can do that better.
Okay, so just want to reaffirm to the board that even from the beginning stages of phases 4 and 5, community has been involved, as they were involved in developer presentations and helped rate the CED proposals from developers. So it's been an ongoing theme as part of the revitalization to keep community informed and participating throughout the process. Just also want to confirm that TCHC and Tridel is working with the Economic and Employment Working Group of Regent Park Social Development Stakeholders Table. It's a working group that Waleed had referred to. We are active partners on that working group. We've even developed and secured funding, external funding to create some really innovative community engagement and training programs for Regent Park tenants. Okay, so we're actively working with community groups and working groups with residents to design and innovate new programs that come into Regent Park that are aligned with everyone's interests at the table. So we are currently working on that, and in the future state, we are going to be going to community on a regular basis to do priority setting, to understand the evolving needs of Regent Park residents. So every 3 to 5 years, we will go back to community in the form of surveys, focus groups, to understand, hey, how are things to do a couple of things, to set refresh priorities, get a pulse as to how things have worked or have not worked, and then pivot and evolve our approach in terms of implementation according to that feedback. And that information will be shared with the community, because we're hoping to leverage our engagement processes to enable organizations, grassroots groups, and tenants understand what the voices of community in community, so that way we're moving forward together. It's not an isolated engagement process. We will share that information out so that way the City of Toronto, community agencies, and tenants understand where we're planning on going and what people are saying as future investments in social and economic transformation take place. And that's an ongoing process from now until the end of the revitalization.
Okay, I'm going to turn this
I just sorry, have a addition. I guess my only suggestion would be to look at ways that people, as this group could participate more specifically in decision-making as opposed to just recommendations and that. So to engage them more fully. So that would be a suggestion I would make.
Okay, thank you. Ziva, and then Debbie.
All right, so I just have two questions. The first question is, I'm a bit unclear of what was the original agreement? Like what was the original agreement in Region Park? So there's mention of 2020, there was mention of SDP, there was mention of many things, but I'm just unclear on what exactly was the original agreement. So if someone could clarify that with me, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I can start off by saying that.
Is that?
I'm just conscious of the time.
We need to.
Yeah.
So the original agreement was secured at a $26.8 million community benefit investment. The agreement was that TCHC and the developer would engage in a one-year community process to determine the allocation of cash of investments, and we are delivering that. Everything else in relation to the social development plan and funding towards it, these are all things that are informing the investments, and the investments, as you can see, are driving forward social development plan goals. Okay, we are all on the same page. What is at stake here is an issue of funding specific initiatives, and the overall context is that investments from other stakeholders like the city is looking different in upcoming years. Okay, so we don't have all the money to fund everything, and we need to work together to secure funding for specific initiatives that might fall outside of the CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement.
Okay, can I just ask a question, a simple question? Are you following the framework that was signed?
Absolutely. And the level of engagement that TCHC is providing, you will not see that anywher else in
just
Ontario,
asking if you,
at least.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Just want to make sure that, because there's...
but my sense is, Adele, that the committee disagrees, given that TCHC made a unilateral decision about 50% of the money going into employment, as opposed to what was suggested at 33 or 39% based on tenants' input, from what I've heard for Waleed. I had one really quick question. Is part of the reason why we're using 50% because it's easier to have in kind in terms of employment from Tridel than cash?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Debbie. I just want to correct one thing.
Sorry, Waleed.
I don't really...
Sorry, Waleed. The question was for staff.
I'm going to hand over to Peter Zimmerman to respond to that.
Yeah, through the chair, the allocation of funds in the different buckets, part of it is about the community priorities. Part of it was about what Tridel had proposed as part of the original community-informed RFP process. And part of it relates to, there's an overarching requirement that the allocation of those funds remain within a context of financial feasibility. So there is an aspect of all of the decision-making related to the delivery of community benefits, whether they're jobs and training or community facilities, that has to relate to the financial viability of the project, and when funds will be available over the course of the development, because the developer funds the investments through the projects that are being delivered along the course of the project. So there is this aspect of it that does relate to economics, for sure.
So I'll take that as a yes, that Tridel, it's easier to get Tridel to say yes to 13 million in some sort of jobs and training than it is to get cash that can then be reallocated differently between employment and the social development initiatives as suggested by the committee. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask that you work closely with the groups, that you continue that. And I will just, I think that's the end of the discussion. And so I will just ask for a motion to receive this report at this point. And I would think that as we go through this process, that the board should be updated on how this is going. That's what I would ask. Okay, so can I have a motion to receive? Vanita, John, all in favor? And I thank the deputants very much for their time and bringing this to our attention, and we'll continue to work on it. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 9E. And we have a deputant on this, but I am going to ask for some leeway because Nick held this item and he has to leave shortly. So I'm going to ask that he have the opportunity to ask his questions as it relates to the State of Good Repair Program and Process Review. We also have, I think we have guests on this. So I will ask for the deputant's forgiveness. So Nick, you go ahead.
Thank you. And really, I don't have a question. What I want to share as chair of BIFAC, this report came through BIFAC, and there was pretty extensive discussion. I think this is a really important piece of work that was done. This is a big focus for the corporation, the capital, just to keep the buildings in good repair and frankly, obviously improve the repair. This flows through to reporting. This flows through to key performance metrics. And I'd just like to ensure that we give a couple minutes to Noah to sort of highlight, some of the points of emphasis here, because this, I want to just make sure this is the importance of this item and work. I think is really, really pivotal for the organization. So I just want to emphasize that, and maybe give Noah a few minutes to highlight if he, I assume he's in the room, but I can't see, to maybe make a couple key points. That's all I wanted to say. Happy to sort of cede to the deputant ahead of Noah, but really want to just emphasize the importance of the work that's being done and what this sets us up for going forward in a very important area for the organization.
Okay. Nick, can I ask you a question? So does BIFAC have a schedule where the plan to implement these recommendations will be brought forward to BIFAC and how you're going to monitor the progress on the implementation?
I believe, going by memory, we discussed that. We definitely discussed that in the meeting. I believe that was the next step, was come back with an implementation plan, because some of the timelines mentioned in the consultant report look pretty long. So I think the next step is for management to come back at the next meeting with timelines around implementing the plans and so on. But happy for someone else to correct me if I'm just going by memory.
Okay, and Vanita would like to correct you. No, she'd like to add to your comments.
Oh boy, through the chair to the other chair, or the BIFAC chair rather. I think Nick, your memory is mostly correct. It was a really hot day that day, but Noah did commit, as I'm sure he'll share, that he's going to be returning to BIFAC with an implementation plan for us. And we emphasized that BIFAC, Brian, myself, Nick, in our robust discussion.
And is that at the next BIFAC meeting?
We're going to hear from Noah for that update, not Vanita, but...
No, I'm just wondering what was committed to at the BIFAC meeting.
We expressed the urgency of the matter and the fact that we cannot wait as long as some of the timelines suggested in the GEI report, and even, up to a quarter worth of time for Noah to consider what he has to do for his team, maybe pushing it, but that's our meeting cadence for BIFAC. So I won't speak for Noah, but yeah, it's a commitment, but no timeline of a firm date, Nick. That's the answer, but let's hear what Noah has to say now that we've had like a week to digest it.
Okay, because there are a number of recommendations that relate to budgeting, and we are in the budget cycle. And so I think there is urgency to those items. But can we move to the deputant? Would that be okay? Nick, do you want to hear from Noah before you leave?
No, go ahead. I'm gonna try and stay on as long as possible, but I just want to say that piece.
Okay, so I think Miguel is the deputant on this. I'm sorry, who's this? Who? Oh, okay. Thank you.
So James, can you step away for just a second?
Where's Mike? So who is this gentleman? Is this James? James, yes, that's James, okay.
State of disrepair. I appreciate the consultant's report. It's a very honest and open and eye-opening of the current state of buildings. And with this regards, I had to go back to the history, how we came to have almost $2 million in 2019. In 2014, we have an excellent counselor that was champion for TCHC tenants because she was concerned that our buildings were being, falling apart. Councilor Ana Bailao, I'm sure John Campbell knows her, was very active in engaging tenants. And many times with the Pure here at City Council, with the Pure at Queen's Park, and we went on a charter bus to Ottawa to speak to politicians in Ottawa to encourage them to invest in TCHC. So when the election came in 2018 and former Prime Minister Trudeau helped the City of Toronto to get $1.3 billion, I think this money is almost done, and the 10-year ambitious program has yet to complete. And we are facing one interesting key finding I did. I took my notes, I read the whole article in help with my friend. So 49 years old is the average age of the buildings in TCHC. And that means that some of the more vulnerable aspects of the buildings that can get absolutely needs to be repaired is the HVAC, is the plumbing of the buildings. And now we are facing with $8 billion instead of good repair. One of the key findings I also read is that management, the decision is unclear to make process and TCHC lack internal annual objectives for the SHOR. There's limit authority, termism is a definition that I don't understand, but it looks that what we have been doing so far is just doing Band-Aid repairs for our aging buildings. I understand that you have consulted with several housing agencies, Vancouver, Ottawa. My girlfriend is from Germany, and she said, back in Germany, 80% of the residents live in buildings that are renters. And so if you want to seek for the best idea to deal with our state of good repairs, to look at Europe. And right now, our government is looking into Europe for partnerships. I want to stop and say that I want to continue the conversation about the tower renewal of 220 Oak Street that was approved in 2020. In 2020, we have an ambitious $30 million tower renewal, but in view that we rushed to fix properties that are crumbling down, like Swansea News or other properties, which seems to defund these properties that were approved in the beginning of 2019. So I'm sure that Noah and I will have a conversation, because currently we are not receiving the promised the redevelopment of the building. It's stagnant. It's only a mix of landscaping improvements and a dog park and a mural, but it's not addressing the main core,
Mr.
which
Avila?
is
Sorry, if you can wrap
in a building condition assessment. And the building condition assessment from the year 2021, it reflects what are the important changes that need to happen in my building.
Mr. Avila? Sorry, you had 5 minutes for your deputation.
Am I done?
You're over your 5 minutes.
Oh my God, thank you, Derek.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Noah, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, and I'd thank you very much, and through the chair, thank you, Nick, for your comments. I couldn't agree more. This touches on processes, this touches on preservation, modernization, funding, redevelopment, deep tower renewal, preventative maintenance, recommissioning. This is why I'm here. This is my group's raison d'etre. This is what we are focused on. And this report, and James and Andrea from GEI are here today to answer any questions you might have from them. I think we're going to forgo their presentation that they made at BIFAC, and you know, what they've done very well is understand our work. And lay out an overarching roadmap, a plan for a plan, if you will. And there's a number of things we have to do very quickly. We have to understand exactly where we are. We have to take a look at the portfolio performance, and we're going to look at that in reports coming to BIFAC in the fall, like our annual FCI report and things like that. And we're going to introduce some deeper KPI as per the report's request. And we're going to cut the portfolio in a number of different ways. That's both going to tell us where we are now and also what the shape of an investment plan for the future should and can look at. The report also makes mentions to processes that are on the ground right now that need improvement, and we're already in the process of addressing those. We have a variance report that's in front of the group today that speaks to greater transparency and stewardship, budget control. We've answered, the auditor was here this morning, we've answered a number of internal audits as well around SOPs, around project selection and pieces like that. What I found in the 6 weeks that I've returned to TCHC is that there's these pools of data everywhere that we need to kind of bring forward in more wholesome reporting. But there's a twin imperative of urgency that's with us right now too. We have a budget, as the chair has pointed out, that's due imminently. And we also have a state of good repair plan that's in flight now with a number of at-risk deliverables. So we need to focus on that and this twin imperative of introducing a new and restated.
There's no internet. So that it's not being streamed? There's just a lot of beeping. I don't know what any of this means.
I mean, if you think I arranged this, you're wrong, okay?
There's no internet connection.
Previously, when we had a technical issue like this, we shut down the feed and restarted it again with a brief break to hope to see if rebooting the system would correct the issue. That may be something we want to consider at this point in time, given this experience. You
I think those folks can hear you.
Agreed.
Can you speak directly to them on yours?
So all of the board members are not hearing any of this?
I know, I'm going to send them a text.
Oh, okay.
Can you speak to them on yours? Like if you just turn on your microphone.
I think Charmaine is.
Yeah, you're sending them a chat, right?
I'm sending them a chat.
For the benefit of board members who are online, we seem to have lost a connection from the room to the internet. We're considering restarting the meeting, or at least the live stream, to see if that will address the problem. AV staff are working on the issue right now. Let me keep this thing on so I can hear them. Sorry, what? Yeah, I think so.
They should do some state of good repair investments in their technology assets.
Yeah, we can get them on the MiFi devices.
No, you were on a roll there. You're going to have to start over.
We may not have it like a broader bandwidth though to support the.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll test those things to their limits.
It's the bandwidth. Yeah, it's the bandwidth.
Yes. Yeah. Oh no, I heard them too.
Okay. You can hear them? So how are you communicating this?
We're back.
He just unmuted himself because we have our own.
Okay, so can we?
That's what I just asked.
Okay.
But the city said that they're back up.
Okay. So it seems like we're back up. Oh, now I can hear an echo. Why am I hearing an echo?
It's fixed.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Noah, so sorry for the interruption.
I don't know if live stream is up again, is it?
No problem. And one of my colleagues is.
Hold on, Noah.
Wait, I'm not sure it's live streaming yet. Sorry, one of his what?
The YouTube live stream, everyone can still hear us. So it's still streaming.
Oh, okay, so it's still, so it is still streaming and has been as we were trying to fix our technical issues.
Correct.
Sorry for that. Okay, Noah.
You know, I'll keep this really brief, and I think the board chair makes some good points. We have some imminent things we have to address right now in flight while we reset and renew our state of good repair plan, and that's getting ready and preparing our budget submission, and that's also managing the current state of good repair plan and around our agreements with CMHC and our obligations to the city. So having to balance those things. So we're coming back with a series of reporting in Q4, starting in September, October, November, with a plan for a plan to move forward with this. There's a number of evaluating initiatives too that are orbiting around this, not just the GEI report, but there's you know, an audit report, some internal reports, as I said, the annual FCI roundup that'll inform some of this too, and all come together in the fall for a plan for a plan. I agree wholeheartedly with what the group has said, that the timelines outlined in the GEI report need to be escalated at a great rate in order to get where we need to go. And again, it's sort of a three-part approach. Where are we and how have we spent that money, and showing the efficacy of the spend thus far and what state the portfolio is in and what processes and gaps we have and how we're addressing them, where we want to go, what a sound investment plan into the future looks like, what it costs, and what we can achieve. And then that third step, which is taking it and aligning it with intergovernmental funding opportunities. And again, building it on some of the strengths that the report has pointed out, our ability to steward the money and spend it correctly and choose good projects, and our ability to lower the facility condition index that we've been managing to do.
So can I ask my question again? I'd like to understand when you're going to come back to BIFAC with a plan as to how to address these issues.
We will be.
The board, and so that BIFAC can monitor and the board can be updated.
We will be back at BIFAC Q4 of this year with a plan, with an implementation plan for the state of good repair renewal.
In Q4 of this, so how are you going to address issues like budgeting? Because budgeting, we approve the budget in Q4.
Again, these are things we have to do in hand with one another.
Yes.
We also have a state of good repair plan that's in flight, that has deliverables in flight that we need to address. So we have to find a way to reconcile the two and be able to complete our final years of the state of good repair plan in flight while we get ready to renew these things.
Okay, I'm not just talking about spending the dollars, I'm talking about the recommendations, because I do think that this was a very comprehensive report, and I really appreciate that. But there are recommendations in here, and I'm looking for some kind of a commitment from you, Noah, as to when you're going to come back to BIFAC. I appreciate that you've got other reports that you want to bring to BIFAC, but I'm looking for when you're going to bring the plan back and have a timeline so that BIFAC can be monitoring how you're implementing these recommendations.
We will be coming back Q4 of this year with a breakdown of these recommendations and how we are addressing them.
Okay, my concern is the budgeting ones, and BIFAC, you have a BIFAC meeting in September.
Some of these recommendations we are already finding ways to implement.
Then that's what BIFAC wants to hear.
Okay.
BIFAC wants you to go basically respond to what's here with the timeline.
Thank you. So we'll be addressing some of these recommendations through the budget process, and we'll identify those for BIFAC, and we'll be coming forward with a broader plan for the renewal of the state of good repair plan by Q4 of this year.
Okay, so I think at the next BIFAC meeting, just how you're going to go through these recommendations, and if the work is being done already, that's great. But I think BIFAC wants an update. And we want to be able to monitor your progress as you implement these. Or you may have, GEI, James has recommended one thing, you may want to monitor, modify it slightly or whatever, but I think BIFAC needs to hear on that.
Agreed. We just want to make sure it's a thoughtful approach and that it takes a serious approach to this, and that the timelines are realistic for a thoughtful response.
And that's what and that's what I think, BIFAC's happy with that. But they need to understand how you're responding to the recommendations and your plan to implement, and that includes a timeline. Vanita.
Briefly, through the chair, I would echo, this was an incredibly well-produced submission by our consultants. This is the type of report that when we pay for as a corporation, we want to know it's not on the shelf, it's living throughout the organization. Yes. In fact, it'll be living with the board. We'll be leveraging these insights alongside whatever gets produced for us to do our job from a governance perspective. But it's progress, not perfection. We're not looking for a full-blown implementation plan by September. That's not realistic, but we need to see that we're moving towards the right direction with what we have. Thank you.
And at least the urgent items are being addressed.
That's a helpful clarification. We'll have something to BIFAC for the September 11th meeting.
Through you, Chair, could I add a few pieces just to the recommendations? If we forego in the presentation, I'll cut to some comments regarding those recommendations. Mm-hmm. Would that be okay?
Yep. Please, thank you.
So the recommendations and the timelines that we provided, the timelines obviously are all about how quickly you can get things done and work on things, but those recommendations there is a lot of work that's required to get there. In this report, I think for TCHC is more of the beginning of a commitment to the asset management process, which is a journey. And you don't do this report, what we've said in this report, you don't do these things and then you're done. This is the beginning of a continual improvement journey of being able to ultimately get to a state of good repair plan that is defensible, transparent, and the most cost effective. And there is so many pieces that go into that in so many individual projects, from level of service to the KPI definition, that can take a long time to get the right KPI. You want to make sure you're measuring the right things, right? All the way through to the life cycle modeling, understanding how your assets deteriorate over time. You can go into a whole world of complexity around understanding your actual assets and the dependencies that they have both functionally and spatially. So a roof, for example, is it worth doing the HVAC at the same time as the roof because they're in the same place? Is it the same to do it, a window in a roof in the same building because you're in the same site? There's a world of complexity that you can get to. The recommendations are the high level. These are clear things that will improve your process, but it's the beginning of the journey. So I'd like to emphasize that aspect of what we've put together is the recommendations. Thank you.
Yes, and I think the board wants to understand how we move through that journey and that we are getting progress on how we are moving through the journey.
Agreed.
Okay. And the one question I had was you talk about the definition of value for money and how it's not really, there's no agreement on what value for money means. Have you actually, and maybe I missed this, I tried to read the report carefully, but do you have a recommended definition of value for money? Has that been discussed so that, and this goes back to our earlier conversation about how everybody should be using the same terms in the same way?
Through you, Chair. No, I don't have a defined definition that we would recommend straight away off the cuff for the board, but the main recommendation or the main observation is about being able to see the value that an investment was made. Okay. And whether that is through a reduction in risk to a facility or to the actual benefit or level of service improvement that it's made. That connection between investment and result or outcome of that investment, that is the piece that's not clear. And there's lots of ways that you can connect those bits of information. And the context that we had with the strategic plan was useful because it starts there. Those strategic objectives come down to individual levels of service. So maintain good energy. Energy is one of the key things. What are the technical levels of service that you're measuring to show that you're doing that? And then how does that relate to your actual work on the assets? So what projects get prioritized and how does that flow all the way back up to that strategic objective? In asset management, we call that line of sight. And again, it starts at the top, goes right to the bottom, and to make that a humming, well-oiled process takes a lot of work.
Okay. Yes?
It's actually a great question, and it speaks to one of the things that the report points out as a gap, is on some of our sort of lack of metrics on that particular point. And I think that's what we owe the board, our tenants, our portfolio, is a set of deeper cuts on that. And some examples are about the value of preventative maintenance, or where targeted investments on projects and buildings that are about to go critical, is that where we see the most value for money? For instance, this sort of chunky approach to FCI also is on a building by building approach rather than taking a look at how many units are affected by an investment. So that's a few ideas of how we can bring some of that lens. But I think that's an excellent thing to bring up and an excellent question to ask.
John.
When you look at the facility condition index and there's a decision made to retrofit a building to improve its energy efficiency, will you be looking at, for example, the payback? So how much is invested and when the energy savings will pay back, the duration of that time, while at the same time that asset is depreciating. So if the payback's 20 years, the asset, of course, is depreciating, whether it's the windows or the roof.
It's such a great question. And when you look at Toronto Community Housing's operating costs and the amount we spend on utilities and energy, there is an imperative to address that with every piece of capital work that we roll out. And in fact, why I keep mentioning recommissioning is because some of that small scale preventative maintenance piece has huge gains in terms of our energy piece, or just in leak detection alone. When we take a look at these holistic projects, and we've done many of them, and that's another thing I don't think our group has communicated well, our expertise in delivering these holistic, deep retrofit buildings. We're the only ones who do them at the scale we do them, especially in occupied buildings. We look at the building from a number of different ways. We look at the energy consumption, we try to pick the worst performers, and we try to align that with the capital requirements that the building has. The envelope is failing, the windows need replacement, the mechanical systems, et cetera, and they start to align. You won't necessarily see a payback that makes sense on a building of that age when you're resetting it. And some moral math needs to happen, because when you and it's almost like the energy savings as a premium is just something you can't afford to leave on the table with our utility costs. But what you're ending up getting as an investment is an investment in a public asset and public housing, and the continuation of that housing for another 60, 70 years by systemically renewing it. So it's a different type of math rather than just a simple like solar panel payoff, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So I am going to ask if we can have a motion to receive this report. Vanita, John, seconder, all in favor? And James, I would like to thank you. It's a very valuable piece of work for TCHC, so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Chair, thank you to the board for having me. Thank you.
We also have Andrea on the phone, who was one of the authors.
We do.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have your name. Andrea, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 10A, and we have a deputation. No, I pulled 9I, and I'm going to take, just for, in the interest of time, I had a question, I'm just going to take it to Lily offline. And that was just an information report, so.
You want to do a quick vote to receive?
Do we have to, I didn't get to ask my question. So can we just defer it?
You can.
Yep, I'd rather defer it. So we're going to move on to 10A. And Miguel, please.
For our residents sorry, I know that the audio is not working.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it working now?
working. We can hear you.
Okay, so the issue of providing tenants with capacity building is so important. In the tenant circles that I attended twice in Regent Park, is that the community service coordinators do not emphasize the capacity building funding. When I mentioned that there is funding for capacity building, it was like, oh my God, this is shocking news. But I'm glad that they incorporated as part of what the tenants want to see happening in their communities. Today, as you can see, it's only 2 deputants who have come to this table to speak to you. So we had to emphasize that TCHC has funding for the tenants to have capacity building, because the Tenant Advisory Committee has said that it's difficult, it's challenging, it can be cumbersome for some people to come to the meetings and speak on the agenda. Sometimes the agenda can be complicated. As the state of good repair that we just discussed is a very complicated and needs the enlightenment of someone who is professional to explain to you the dynamics and the complexities of all this information. So, and also want to say that TCHC has always said that the tenants are the most important members of TCHC, and they take interest in ensuring that tenants have a voice. But we don't have we are not a consultants. And I mentioned earlier, I would like to come and make a presentation about intermittent noises and how we can equip our community safety unit officers with proper equipment. And by the way, the community safety unit review has not yet come to this table. During the conversation with Walid and Regent Park and about safety, we're talking safety without having yet spoken on the community safety unit review, which is still in your hands. And hopefully we will incorporate those wonderful ideas, because we come here because we love our communities, we love to see the improving of TCHC as a landlord, but we need the education, we need the capacity building, so that more tenants can come and advocate. As you notice, $8 billion of state of good repair will require a lot of tenant engagement to convince our authorities that we need that funding. Otherwise, 10 years from now, those buildings are going to crumble down if we don't have the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this matter? Perfect. Can I have a motion to approve the deputation policy for stakeholders? Vanita, John, seconder, all in favor? Perfect, motion passed. Can I move on to item not 10CB, sorry. Vanita, you held this one.
Thanks. I'll make it quick in the interest of time. While preparing for today's board meeting, in particular, the information surrounding the strategic plan, I ended up coming across a City of Toronto directive regarding artificial intelligence that led me to further understand that there was information pertaining towards other digital policies that in my first year here at TCHC, I had not been familiar with. I've since reached out to the stakeholder and government relations to ensure that I have an appropriate understanding of how we have a process surrounding what gets on that tracker, and Barbara's team has informed me of what their process is. I would say that because there could be insight and better visibility because we're missing the items that are being missed are due to definition. So, for example, if it's not fully baked in as a directive, it might be in draft form. It may not necessarily appear on our tracker. Similarly, with the Digital Information Strategic Framework, our DISF that's been put out by the city 3 years ago, semantically, it did not end up on our tracking for good reason, but
that information would inform the information technology discussions at board and technically at BIFAC. So these are items that we need to look into how to improve visibility when it drives conversations related towards activities we're trying to pursue as a corporation, but may have no idea exist as items that are put out by the city. So to that, Barbara, maybe you can speak to, briefly current process, and we can address this as the action item we take offline.
Through the chair, thank you. So generally, we have staff that monitor all city committee and council meetings, and they monitor both the reports, so the agendas when they're released, as well as the decision documents, and that will then inform what gets added to the board tracker. There may be instances, although I do not believe that it's consistent, where the city may specifically advise us of a directive that they know is going to impact us, but I would still say that it's our due diligence of monitoring all of these committee and council outcomes that informs what goes on the tracker in addition to whatever we may receive. That is the primary mechanism. But in addition to that, I would say across our organization, we have established working relationships within the business units, with our stakeholders at the city, so whether it's with the Housing Secretariat or it could be IT division or People and Culture division, we also have connections, and that is a mechanism that keeps us apprised of work that is ongoing. So in the particular example that you are referring to, the discussion was that City Council directed 2 city divisions to pull together a working group, and that working group would include representation from agencies and corporations. That working group was those 2 city divisions, IT and Economic Development, were asked to report back to City Council at the end of this year on how they would proceed with implementing this particular initiative. So our staff are saying there is no specific information, concrete information yet to advise our board on what will be involved, what our role will be, but we are monitoring, and we will look to see what the outcome is once that is reported back. In addition to that, what I've also learned in the last little while is that TCHC has created an AI working group committee, and we will be at our next agenda item will be to discuss this particular project that City IT is undertaking. So those connections exist, but I still believe you've raised a valid point of how and when we bring it to the board to make you, so that you have a fulsome awareness.
Thanks so much, Barbara. I think you actually just underpinned my concern in a nutshell, and that's AI governance. It doesn't matter if you're public, private, or what type of organization. Boards have been implementing policies around this, government, city entities, over 5 years. And at the point of deployment on an ad hoc basis with no guardrails around this, we just saw this week what happened to a provincial crown organization when their AI chatbot decided to go rogue. So to that end, this is why for the board charter changes for BIFAC on technology, when we look to say, hey, we're going to implement AI, love it, but also we need guardrails and there needs to be oversight. So this is exactly the reason why we need a mechanism to ensure that selective knowledge and selective information is not the only thing passed to the board, that we have two-way communication so we can govern, because frankly, none of us would like to be a headline in the news related to something that we should have had our arms around likely 3 years ago.
Through the chair, if I may comment on that. So on this list is basically the city directed our president CEO of the board to act on certain initiatives. So on the mention, thank you for flagging us for the digital infrastructure strategic framework. I just got the information. So it's going to be on IT technology roadmap and strategy moving forward. Specifically on the adoption of EI in terms of the governance framework and especially surrounding security and privacy, we already have work underway internally at the TCHC, in addition to the sort of a business layer of a divisional working group and Barbara just mentioned. And in terms of getting the information also, and continue or even deepen that collaboration across with the city guidelines and then across the city ABCs, we have continue to work with our city partners, especially like the CISO's office, as well as the Technology Services Division. So we have TCHC. As a matter of fact, I myself have been made aware since January, we have been invited to participate in some of their initiatives, like the Mayor's AI Challenge, right? So that's one, and we may decide to participate depending on our internal use cases that's available and also feasible for us to participate. The City Technology Services Division recently also made us aware there is a technology sort of a roadshow. So basically to really profile and showcase what we have done well. For example, even in terms of our homes application, right? It's our enterprise-wide property management, and we have come a long way from like spaghetti legacy application for the platforms into a single ERP system. Of course, we will continue to improve and look at the data and why not. But definitely it's going to be on our 2026 work plan to report back to both the committee and the board.
Okay. So I think the board has already asked you to scrub to make sure that everything is complete, and I would suggest that maybe you speak to Vanita as it relates to when things end up on that agreement or on that list. So. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, that you would do this offline, but I would encourage you to engage. Okay, thank you. So can I have a motion to approve the City Council directions? Benita? John? What did it says approve. It says approve.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Sorry, on the agenda it says approve.
To the extent that there are specific recommendations that require action by TCHC arising out of the city directions, it's an approval. Not at all.
Okay, I approve. Vanita, John, thank you. All in favor? Perfect. And can I have a motion to terminate the public session, as that was the last item? Vanita, John, all in favor? Thank you.